Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Idiots on the Airwave podcast. I am the Idiots. He is on some airwaves. And today we're joined by our special grass, Kiera.
I'm the specialist grass. Hello,
Yeah.
everyone.
She's a very special grass.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome.
Thank you for making it. This is the first podcast episode, by the way, where all of us are in person.
Yeah.
We also have multiple cameras, so that's pretty cool.
Yes, and we're using a singular microphone to get everything. So this is a huge experiment run, and we are taking a shot and hoping that everything works and captures.
Mm-hmm. Unluckily for us, we are very bad aims.
Yeah. Worst comes to worst, it's just audio, but, you know.
We're fine.
Fine.
Anyway, so you are a published author? Did you have a publishing company? I don't actually know.
So on Amazon, you actually can create your own publishing company where you essentially say where your book is published.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with a book publishing title. But yes, I am a published author.
So you're a published author just from like a fake company.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't worry. No, there's no way anyone would know.
Absolutely not. No, this is public. Nobody would know.
Yeah.
It's literally what everyone does. But yeah, I'm a published author. I self-published on Amazon about 3 or 4 years ago. And it's just a short story fiction book about 4 chickens who lead very naughty lives and are a lot more intelligent than their owners give them credit for. So
Much fun.
that's a fun little book.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us about how you came about writing it? Like, where did that story come from, and like why and everything? Yeah. Just go off on creative process and stuff. I don't know.
Well, I'd always wanted to write a book, and when I was 8 years old, summer of like 2013, I just sat in my room and I cut out pieces of construction paper and I stapled them together, and I wrote this book about a little stuffed animal called Superdog.
Ooh.
And so it's like this little, I don't even know what kind of breed of dog, but it was this little dog, and I just wrote about his adventures with a bunch of other stuffed animal friends. So, you know, I always had kind of that desire to write and publish a book, and I might turn those little stories into a book in the future. We'll see. But from there, I took a break for a couple of years and focused mostly on academic writing, and then after that, I was like, okay, you know, want to publish a book. And so I was trying to figure out what to write about. My mom was like, well, you always come up with these voices for the chickens whenever you go out and see them. And she said, why don't you do something with that? And so from there, every time I'd go out and see the chickens, I'd have like different ideas pop into my head, and their personalities became even bigger than they already are, which chickens have big personalities. So it was really fun to explore different aspects of their personalities and how that would all factor into a storyline and a plot. So it was really fun, and definitely teeters on that edge of fiction versus reality. So that was really fun to write about and kind of, you know, walk that fine line. Yeah. So, yeah, it was great.
So do you think then you could like tentatively put based on a true story on there?
Well, the names are real, right?
Yes, the names are real, and the chickens themselves are quite real, and each of their personalities are very much their own. And from there, I just added in little things like, you know, one of the chickens enjoys belly dancing, and then, you know, another chicken is just a complete diva and loves gummy worms. So there's little things that I could add in that just made them even more human. But it was definitely starting from something that was very real. So.
It's interesting because you said that like as like a kind of origin story of your writing career, you write with like how to say it, like anthropomorphizing like animals and like other things like stuffed animals or something. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason for that? Like you think like maybe even subconsciously like there's like, is it easier to write with like to create personalities for animals than it is for humans? Because like in your book the humans are kind of background and kind of the receivers of everything that happens because of the chickens and the cats and stuff.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. Subconsciously, it's kind of a deep question. That I would say it's always been easier for me to think about animals, and anthropomorphizing has always been very second nature, like with my cats at home, and especially with my chickens, is just I look at their actions and it's so easy to come up with different motives that they might have. And I'm probably wrong 90% of the time, but it's still really fun. And I don't know how much of that is family culture, because my whole family likes to come up with, different voices for the cats and all the animals. And I think that it was very natural to turn that into a book for me, because it was just easy. I didn't have to fact check with different people. And, if I was going to write about people, then it just brings so much more into account, and like things that you have to think about, which I'm sure writing about a whole family and different brothers. So
yeah,
there's
that's
a lot
not
to think
something
about.
anybody actually knows about.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine, because I haven't finished it yet, and I don't know when I'm finishing it, but we can use that. We can keep using that. Most people watching don't really know about it, but we can keep using it because you get
teaser. Stay tuned for Daniel's book, guys.
If and when it ever comes out.
And by stay tuned, we mean like several years.
Yeah. Don't count on it happening within the next 2 years at all. Unless I somehow just crank it, but I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
So how long would you say it was between you getting the idea to write it and actually, I guess, finishing it? Not necessarily publishing it, but getting it to a point where you think it would be for other people to read it.
Start to finish, it was about 2.5 years. So I started when I was 12, and I ended up publishing when I was 14. I guess I was 11. Math. So it was ready to read right around November, and I published it in December. However, the version that I published in December was horrific. That's something I don't tell many people, but that was a big embarrassment, because I was so done with the book, and I had poured so much of myself into it, and I had spent so much time editing and working through the plot and finessing things. I got super tired of it. And I said, I want this published. I want it out of my hair. Because that was, like, I wouldn't be able to fall asleep at night. Because I'd be like, shoot.
I forgot to write a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I didn't think about editing this part of the chapter. And it was a stressful thing, to have in my life. And so it was so much easier just to say, okay, I'm publishing today. And so I published, and I received the copy. And I just let it sit for a while. And I was like, I published it. Good for me. And the next summer I went through and I spent the whole summer editing, and that was a pain. But now I'm really proud, because I can give people a version that doesn't have spelling mistakes.
And yet somehow one of our friends actually got the original copy after you re-released, because a lot of us, like in the little group that we have, the whole reason we're here actually right now is because we're visiting him.
Yeah.
Like, she and I are from another state. We're visiting him. And we've been here for like a week, and we're here for another week. And a lot of us have the actual like edited copy, but somehow one of the guys got the first
original
copy from Amazon. Did you ever find out why or how?
No, I didn't. I think they just had an extra one, and we're like, okay, well.
Yeah. It makes for a good story.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's definitely advice that I give to people who are writing or hoping to publish. It's like, take the time to edit, because otherwise you will publish something that you're kind of embarrassed about, and you'll spend double the amount of time editing afterward. But it worked out well, so yeah.
It took you 2.5 years, you said, from start to finish. Through all of that though, was it I guess maybe you already answered it more or less, but was it easy to write more or less? Like how? Because the plot moves around a little bit. Like, it's rather intelligent for a children's book, I gotta say. Because what would you classify, like children's, I guess?
Oh, certainly. It's a children's novel.
Yeah. So, like, it's rather intelligent. So, like, was it easy to write in that regard?
No, it wasn't. I usually don't struggle with writing. Writing is the easiest thing for me. It's my favorite subject. I really enjoy English. But writing a book and coming up with ideas, the ideas were the hardest part. And I went through tons of different versions of the plot line trying to come up with things. And what I realized at the end, of course, as I was publishing, was my biggest mistake in the beginning was not thinking through my plot line. Because initially, I was like, well, I'll just write a couple pages and we'll see where it goes. And I wasn't getting my hopes up because, you know, I've tried to write a lot of different stories and they've never gone anywhere. And so I started off with just something random and tried to expand on it versus going through and saying, okay, here's my beginning, middle, end, and really thinking about my plot line. So I guess that's kind of how that went, but I definitely didn't think through it enough.
It's kind of opposite problem for me, where I tend to think through things too much.
That's a good thing, though, because if you're not thinking through things, you're going to end up with a plot line that doesn't make sense, and then you're going to have to go through and rework
But at the same time, if you wind up in my area where you think too much, you actually never get around to writing. I have written very little in my docs, and it just becomes like, I have had this idea stored in my head for like a whole year and a half, and I have let it cultivate and like feed my desire to do other things, and it like I've shaped the characters based on experiences I've had and stuff, and it's not, I still haven't actually written anything out. It's all there in my head. I just don't know how to say it. I don't know how to convey it because it's not a movie, it's not a video game, it's not even music, it's a book. And even though I've been writing with, like, I used to write with my aunt for, like little books, but we would call books. It was, like, stories and that went through, like, 8 different versions. I can't get anywhere past 1,000 words and then be like, I don't know what to do because it's all in my head and I don't, my problem is, like, trying to get it out. So it's like, it's good for you that you were able to like get it all out and then fix it later. I have been doing nothing but fixing it, and I haven't done anything. I've been stuck for years.
Oh man. Have you tried just doing a brain dump? Like, it doesn't matter what order you put your ideas in, but just get all of your ideas out?
Oh yeah, I have, and I deleted the doc because I was so ashamed of it. It didn't, nothing made sense. Nothing made sense to me. Like, I realized then, like, how badly put together everything was, and I just threw it all on the table, and it was like, wow, I like, it scared me, right? It's kind of weird because it kind of reminds me of when I was officially recording music and, like, publishing my first album. Like, I was so scared to do it, and then I hit the button, and, like, now it's out there, right? But this feels, it's so different.
Yeah, it is. It's completely different for sure.
If everybody makes it seem so easy.
It definitely isn't, but yeah, it's astonishing to me, like, these authors that publish books in a year or 2 years. It's wild. And now I understand why sequels take so long to come out.
Yeah. It's like, when you're that devoted to a project, I guess it's like, you really do want to keep going and, like, grind it out and stuff. And, like, whether the result is good or bad, like, you gotta admire the dedication to the grind and, like, the keep moving on the craft and stuff. I have yet to start.
Yeah. So, Miguel, are you more of an English person or a math person?
No. I am okay at math, and I like English, but I'm not good at English, and I don't enjoy math.
Oh.
So it's...
That's a fun combo.
Yeah. I do a bit of writing, but it's much more world-building based. I just find that process a lot more fun, and I don't really have a desire to move past it, so I just kind of...
I might need you then, because I have nothing but story.
Yeah, you know, you could actually help a lot of writers, because a lot of writers struggle with the world building.
That's always come easiest to me. Like, I don't know what's
really
going on in
cool.
here, but I can tell you what the world's about and themes, but
That's really cool.
I don't know who anyone in it is.
That's interesting, because in my stories, like, unless it's taking place in one, like, county or something, or one, like, small town, escaping the bounds of that becomes too much for me, because then it's like, making things realistic. Like, I keep forgetting that it's fiction, and, like, no, you can't, like, blow up buildings. That doesn't happen, like, but, like, I can't name, like, specific places or something, forgetting that it's fiction, and it's fine, but it's a thing in my head that wrecks me, and, like, maybe I just need to create a whole new world. I don't know.
Well, I would actually suggest not doing that. My entire arc in world building is I start with something I know. And this is something that one of my friends did, because a lot of my world building originally comes from maps, because I like drawing maps. So basically what my friend told me is basically, alright, just take a place you know, flip it upside down, invert water and land, and just go from there.
That's really interesting.
Is you just take places you know, just do something to them, make it, and then just slightly start changing it into like, oh, well, I could do that. And then eventually you can get to a world that is completely different from where you started from.
Yeah.
That's
At the same time,
fascinating.
though, I wish there was a market just for world building, and it was so like as captivating as storytelling, right? Because it's not, because like world building takes up so much time for me typically. Like it's not, I can't. It takes up so much of my brain power that I'm like, is it even worth writing anymore? Should I just build worlds? But I can't really do something with it because world building isn't quite like writing.
Yeah,
and it's hard to incorporate both because, we got plenty of examples of authors that sucked at world building but had great stories and vice versa. It's very difficult to do both, and it's like, I think I have a great story, but I have no world for it. I don't have a setting. It's all in a void.
Sounds like you guys should talk.
Yeah, kind of. Maybe.
Yeah, and no, it is struggling, because that's also one of the things about world building, is that I think a lot of writers, is that in my opinion, writers like to go somewhere. World building fundamentally doesn't really go anywhere.
True.
It is the where.
It is, yeah, it's the where, but it's not necessarily going anywhere. At the very least, the stories will never be told. Because you can make a world, but you can't do everything with the world. You can only take snippets out. So I think that's also something that people struggle with, is that they struggle to be like, well, I want to tell all the stories of people in the world. But at some point, you just can't.
No, you can't. You have to focus on one thing and narrow down from there.
Well, that's why books like yours are so cool, because it's like it doesn't even escape the confines of the backyard or the house. It's just there. I wish
so
my
much
story
easier.
was so simple.
Yeah, the authors who write about cities and worlds, like especially, I don't know, I'm thinking about J.K. Rowling. Wrote about two separate, more than two, but like, the entirety of England almost. That takes a lot of skill. And for me, it was just so much easier to be like, no, I'm going to base the chicken's backyard in the book after the backyard that I have at home. I'm going to base everyone who's in the family, even the cats and the chickens, after my family and animals. It made it super easy. I mean, granted, people reading it are like, this is what your family's like. These are your chickens and these are your cats. I'm like, no. But that's where I had to start, because it's a lot easier that way.
Right.
Yeah.
E.
But even with something like J.K. Rowling, right? Like, Harry Potter is wildly successful, and it's pretty good. I have certain issues with Harry Potter, and it's not the ones you think. I just think they're not that greatly written at some points, but
Really?
I don't hate them.
Okay.
There's just some interesting things that I'm like, that just sounds weird.
Yeah, the same with me, but it's entertaining. It's entertaining. That's the thing, though. There's good and entertaining, and Harry Potter is wildly entertaining, so...
Yeah, but I don't have any real issues with it. But fundamentally, I do believe that Rowling basically created the entire Earth. Because when you start doing stuff like that, like you put into the real world, you basically have to rewrite history. There's no way around it.
Right.
So,
and it's still fiction, so it's fine.
Yeah, but in her head, she probably has the history of the world and how it's changed.
I know. Yeah.
And that will
Probably.
just never be told. And
Which sucks.
Yeah, but it's like, there's no real way to tell it.
True.
And it's also, once you start branching off into your world, you also get people who are just like, well, that's not the way I wanted it to happen. Like, say what you will about, like, the new Harry Potter universe things. They were gonna be hated no matter what. There would always be a certain subset of people who are like, well, that's not what I think it should be like, so...
Do you have enough problems with that when you make movies out of books, though?
Certainly.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this wasn't in the book, or they didn't include this minor detail that was so cool. It's honestly pretentious to me, because they're not actually comparable, like, unless it was explicitly intended and, like, really, really, really tried. But even then, I don't care. Like, the Hobbit movies, like, towards the third movie, like, the plot is, like, 50% original book, 50% its own thing. And I don't have a problem with it, but I've got some friends and family members that, like, it sucks because of that. And I'm like, can you just isolate it for a moment, please?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're separate mediums.
Yeah.
This is a weird example, but Shrek the movie and Shrek the play are wildly different because they're two completely different mediums.
Certainly.
Even if you've tried to write an essay and then done a video essay, they don't work together. You can't just copy and paste. You have to treat them as separate.
Yeah, that's true. I do feel like if you're basing a movie off of a book, you should try to stick to it as much as possible. Because if you're not going to base it off the book, or if you're going to take 2% of it or 30% of it, you might as well just create your own thing.
Which is what they did with How to Train Your Dragon, right? Like they made movies and TV shows and only used like 1%, that being like the names and stuff.
Right, and the characters.
Yeah, and the characters' names and stuff. And like that was fine because it's awesome. It's good and very entertaining. My family loves everything that Dragons has ever really produced. And like and like my sister loves the books, but she's isolated the books and the movies because they just have to be isolated. And like yes, and they just went off and did their own thing, and that's cool. Actually, speaking of mediums, what would it be like if somebody tried to make a different medium of your book, like make a movie or a short film out of it? I don't know.
That'd be interesting. Like, whenever I've thought about making a movie out of my book, I always think about Chicken Run. Like, you know, some sort of claymation thing.
Chicken Run is awesome. It's so weird, but it's so funny.
So, I've always gone to claymation, but I think CGI could work. CGI graphics have gotten really good, or, you know, whatever, however you say it.
Motion capture.
Motion capture.
Yeah, just have to, like, walk around like chickens.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really interesting and certainly a treat to watch as a person who's, you know, written that book.
Well, as the author, though, would you want to have a say in how that was, like, produced and stuff?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Because they're taking my work and turning it into a different medium. And, like, that's still something that I worked on and I spent time on, and I'm happy to discuss with people and, you know, compromise and work on things, but at the end of the day, it's still something that I created. And so I want to make sure that the finished product still represents kind of that idea that I had. Yeah, but I don't know, we'll see if it gets turned into a movie. I feel like that's a long ways off.
You gotta write a few more books, though.
I know.
Do you have any plans on writing more in the future and publishing more?
I do, yes. At the moment, I'm a little booked out.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, so I've taken a step away from writing books. I focus mostly on great books, essays.
Fair enough.
That's fun. So I'm pretty preoccupied with academic writing at the moment, but I think in the future I might go back to the chickens and write. And I've learned so much through writing my book, and then also through subsequently writing, you know, all my Pinterest feed turned into book recommendations and writing ideas and ways to structure your plot. So I've amassed so much knowledge, and I feel like if I was to write a book in the future, it would go a lot faster. So it might be less painless, which sounds great. So we'll see. But I think...
Would there be other plots besides the chickens? Not that I have anything against the chickens, but it would be like, would there be more stories as well? Like more little worlds?
Yeah, I had a story that I thought of. It was a reverse hero's journey.
Ooh.
So, because I was like, everyone does hero's journey, which is, for those who don't know, it's where a regular, ordinary person realizes that they have a calling. They refuse the call, and then later they're convinced, and they embark on a journey that changes their life, and then they encounter obstacles, they overcome obstacles. Usually, most movies will have a moment where the character realizes that the thing that they've been striving for and fighting for so long wasn't what they wanted after all. And so they do kind of a 180 and they find what they're actually looking for, and then, you know, the story kind of ends. In books, it's not quite as common. But anyways, I wanted to take that and flip it because it's always told from the perspective of the hero. Because then the audience is also informed about the new world that the hero's going into. So it makes sense. And so I was like, well, how about we create the village, you know, or like the people and the world that this hero's going into. We tell it from the perspective of one of the villagers. And so that's a story that I was working on 2 or 3 years ago, and I got decently far in it, but it was very, very difficult because I had to create a separate narrator part in it so I could inform the audience about the world that I'd created. And I realized it was really difficult to do that, and the hero's journey is tried and true, and I feel like it's the way to go. So it's
an interesting concept to toy
with,
though.
Very
you would just have to
concept.
put the hero at the end, I guess, because it takes so much time to build the world that he's entering into, right?
Possibly, yes. My idea was that if the person the person whose perspective you're telling the story from ends up becoming close with the hero or accompanies the hero, like, you know, Hermione and Harry Potter, then you can still get away with a fair amount because that hero is going to be kind of clueless about this new world, and so the person whose perspective you're telling the story from can inform them about all those things. So I did get kind of far with that, but it was difficult. It required a lot of brain power, and I was like, I need to take a break from this. So right now that's sitting in drafts. And aside from that, I have another chicken book that I'm toying with. So it's those two at the moment, but yeah. Yeah,
cool.
Fun times. I haven't talked about that story idea. I think you guys are some of the first to hear about it.
You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here first. Yep.
Epic.
Yeah.
So then, I guess this is a question for both of you. I guess all of us, since all of us do a little writing. When you're creating a story, what is the hardest thing you have a time doing?
Ending it. I can't. I have been writing this story in my head for 1.5 years, and I cannot figure out how to end it. Because none of it works, and I think I actually have to make 4 new stories to get all of the endings that I want. This is probably why authors do so many other different stories, because they all want different results. And I want so many different results for this, and I'm like, oh, this one could work, but also this one could work. I can't, and so I probably have to like make 4 or 5 new stories for it. And it's annoying because even with all of that planned out, and I'm still planning out actually multiple books at once, I still haven't figured out how to end the original. Ending it, by far the hardest part for me.
Yeah, I second that. With my book, that was the hardest part. Because I didn't think through my plot line. Personally, I feel like that was my problem. So ending it was really hard. Also, for me, character building is so difficult. Finding things that characters are passionate about, things that become their identity, different, traits and so forth, and also weaknesses. Meshing those together into something that seems like it could happen in reality is hard. And even though the world is filled with so many different people who all have different strengths and weaknesses, like trying to come up with something and be like, I think this combo works, and then seeing if you can write about it, it's so difficult for me. So that's my struggle.
It plays out so nicely in person, and then you have to like pretend of that.
Exactly.
You have to pretend reality, which is way harder than it sounds.
Yeah. What about you, Miguel?
I cannot write protagonist. I don't know what it is. Anytime I come to it, I just get a block.
Interesting.
I don't know what it... I think it's because I see an oversaturation of protagonists. It's that I never feel passionately about protagonists. Like original Star Wars, Luke's fine, but I don't really care.
Well, nowadays he's average because he's what started everything, and now it's like...
Back then, whenever I first watched this, I'm like, I don't care about you, I'm not gonna lie. Same with Harry Potter. It's not that they're bad or poorly written characters. It's something about protagonists that it's just like, I kind of know that at some point you're gonna realize you're stupid. Like, it's something that I just cannot suspend my disbelief for protagonists for whatever reason, that I'm like...
It's just too obvious.
Yeah.
So what you have is the question that many ask, which is why should I care?
Yeah, and so it's way easier for me to get invested in, like, side characters, even villains. I love villains. They're so interesting.
Well, yeah, because they're antagonists.
Yeah, but because that's the thing. You see this in my reviews. I prioritize fun. I love just fun things, and villains are the most fun because they can do whatever they want, and the writer doesn't have to stop them.
Yeah.
So they can just be fun. So I love that, so I love villain building, I love side character building, but when protagonists come, I'm just like, I don't know.
Do you know how this is
That's
going to roll
interesting.
out?
Yeah, and it's like, I don't want to make,
So you need
the
an anti-hero?
stereotypical-
Do you like anti-heroes?
Not really, because even then, I feel like anti-heroes just too easily slip into, like, pretentiousness. Like, I'm a good guy, but I'm gonna be angsty about it. It's like, okay. But at the end of the day, you're the same guy. And I'm not good at writing anti-heroes better. I'm way better at writing just morally gray characters in general.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much less about people trying to do the right thing, but doing it the bad way, and much more about people who just don't care. Because, in general, I don't care, so I relate to that more.
Nice. That's interesting. You could open up like a whole new genre and plot line potential.
Yeah, that is definitely something to tap into.
Yeah, because it's like, if you want me to write a story about a side character, even I can do that. I don't know what it is about the head roll, though. That's just something that I don't know. I always block. I'm like, I don't know what to do with you. I know you have to be there, but I have no idea what you're supposed to do once you're there.
Interesting. Very interesting. My characters just... They're just trying to fix the sickness that makes them immortal.
That's a really interesting
They
plot
hate... Nobody... I haven't told very many people about my story, and I've especially never told about it on camera, because it's long, and it's dark, and it's... depending on who you are, kind of disgusting. Suffice it to say that these guys have been so wrecked that they've basically been cursed with immortality and near indestructibility.
Wow.
And they've like attempted so many forms of suicide, and they just cannot die. And it infuriates them, and so their quest is to figure out how to get rid of it.
Wow.
And what the source of it is this chemical implant in their brain that basically creates an anti-soul into them, and it was supposed to eat away their original soul and repossess the body and become like part of some demon army or something. But it backfired, and now they control the power of the demon, and they can use it, which is why they can't be killed. And so I've always imagined like them in like horror games I've played, or like analog horror scenarios, and like destroying the horror because they can't be killed, and they're just so bored with it, and they're just done with it, and they hate it, and they can't find happiness in anything because they see everyone dying before them. Like it's part of their image. The part of them being immortal is that they can't. They don't see humans regularly. They like see them on another level, and they can see. It's not like in the anime Death Note where they can like see when they're gonna die, like the exact moment when they're gonna die, but they can see how long the person has in more of a metaphysical sense. It's difficult because it gets into very, I don't know, hyper-spirituality is the wrong word for it, but it's very...
abstract.
Yeah, the problem is that it's really abstract, and a lot of the book kind of takes place inside of their minds, talking with the demon, and having the same argument over and over again, because the demon can't destroy itself, but neither party is strong enough to destroy the other. But their body is decaying, but they can't die. So they have to figure out how to, like... that's my idea so far, but so far I haven't figured out, like, what happens if the body does decay and, like, they cannot possess the body anymore.
That's a fascinating
And the immortality
idea.
is just the time kill, and the only way they keep track of how long they've been alive is because their hair grays slowly. Like they appear like older teenagers, but their hair is graying. It's weird. I don't have this very well fleshed out yet, so it's all kind of stuck.
You've got excellent bones in there, though, and I feel like you could, like, I don't know if you're planning to go for this kind of mood to the story, but you could add a lot of humor into it.
It's interesting because there's only 4 of them, right? And like one of the tropes that you'd write with is the 5-man band. And one of them, like, it's basically all of them can interchange each other's role, but they are good at their own role. Like the oldest one is kind of the leader, the second one is kind of the big strong one, the third one's the intelligent one, and the fourth one's kind of the funny one. But they're all incredibly strong, and like they can all interchange it, but they're all very good at that thing. They don't have the heart because the 5th brother supposedly died. Like his soul was eaten away, but for some reason the demon also collapsed into itself and wound up killing him. And so they go on a quest basically to find the heart, which could manifest in multiple ways, and I don't have a decided way. If I can figure out what would be the best way to find it, then I have the ending of the story, and then I can write, and I could probably bang it out in 6 months, and I have like bones and flesh, and that's kind of it.
That's really cool, though. So are you thinking about them finding a person who would have the heart, or are you thinking about something that would be like, you know, they would all receive and be inside them, you know, something cutesy like that?
It was the power of friendship all along.
I don't know. I've toyed with the idea of them like finding religion, but they are incredibly knowledgeable. So they already know about like religions, and like they have their opinions about like which religion is the best religion, but they don't strictly follow it. Like I toyed with the idea of them being like Muslim or Christian, but like not being baptized or something. And it's like this, that, and the other thing. I toyed with the idea of them like finding girls, but that didn't work because they're still missing their brother, and that's a large part of why they're still stuck.
Yeah.
And so maybe I just
all they needed was a female.
I don't know. The substitute name for the heart is also called the chick, because that's typically the best that's typically the best role that they play in stories.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe the brother comes back from the dead, but they have to save him, and then then they're all like back together, and they don't have to be as miserable anymore or something. I haven't decided, and this is why I'm thinking of actually like breaking off and starting other stories with maybe less characters, because they're easier to write about. Like I have 4 protagonists, and they're all like very odd protagonists to me, because they're all so broken, but they can't die, and they just want nothing more than to die.
Interesting. So, yeah, I struggled with that too, sorry. Because I had 4 protagonists. There was no lead chicken in my story.
Right.
I love how we're going from broken immortal brothers to
chickens.
Chicken.
But I found that the easiest thing to do was to have a central goal that they were all working towards, but then tell it like different. Each chapter would be from a different chicken's perspective.
That worked rather well too.
It worked rather well, so you could adopt a similar thing for your
It's something that Rick Riordan did with later novels, not in the Percy Jackson ones, but later novels like Heroes of Olympus, where each chapter would be character. And I've tried it. I tried it as in like I got 3 chapters in, but it's something that would make the best sense as far as moving the story. I just still have to figure out how to end it.
Right.
And I don't know how.
Have you thought about them overcoming like some sort of lead demon, I don't know, some big enemy that they're all working to fight, that they think has the answer to stopping their immortality or ending it, but then that enemy ends up being their brother?
I didn't tell you about this story. How'd you know?
That's
actually the most recent idea I've been toying with, and
I think it could be really
the
cool.
other not the problem, but another aspect of the story is that the demons were planted in their minds by their parents.
Their
parents are the leads of this underground, like, psychotic scientist team that wants to figure out how to break the human mind and then rebuild it in a more
sinister,
in a submissive way, but still have it function humanly enough to where they won't become robots, because human robots do not function. At least that's the conclusion they have come to. And so they want to figure out how to destroy the brain, like break it, and then replace it, which is basically what the anti-soul is supposed to do.
Interesting.
And they're supposed to build an army. The brothers, the sons of these scientists, were supposed to be the Grand Commanders. And somehow, I have yet to flesh out the exact details, but somehow something went wrong and they destroyed the entire facility and presumably killed their parents and their brother in the process by accident. But I haven't figured that out yet, because the lead demon would have to be somehow that their parents resurrected their brother, who was built to be like the commander of them all. Like, as part of some weird experiment where like the youngest brother was supposed to be like the head of everybody.
I like that. It's unusual.
It's weird. And so like the idea was maybe to have the brother like fight them all, and then like maybe they like recover his mind, and like it's like the most like joyous moment ever, like as they're all like laying after in like the battlefield or something. Because I have to figure out how to make them fight, because if they're indestructible, then they can't fight, because they can't destroy each other. So there's a material out there that can destroy them, but also could heal them if done properly. And that's where I think maybe another character would come in, where they have the healing ability, but then they have to go on another journey, or maybe the journey, to figure out how to use it properly. But it's all still out there. I just have the origin story, and I haven't really settled on a means to... This is why comic book writers have multiverses, so that they can just use the same characters in the same setting, in the same scenarios, but have wildly different stories, right?
It's pretty cool.
Like in the one universe, Superman doesn't kill Joker, and another one he does. But like, this is why there's multiverses. But I don't want a multiverse, because that's too typical.
Yeah,
So
well,
I don't
you
know.
could write out a multiverse and then go with the version you like best.
I could, yeah. I just haven't decided which one is the best outcome yet, because there's still so many outcomes to think about that I want to wait until I think about all of them. But that could take my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? I've done nothing.
Well, I think at a certain point, you've got to go, because you have really good bones right now. So I think, focusing on fleshing out characters and plot lines and deciding what your ending's going to be, and then saying, okay, I know I don't have all the pieces yet of the puzzle, but I'm going to start. And, even just setting a timer for 25 minutes every day and just writing, that's going to move the goalpost, so much further for you. And you'll find that those pieces that you've been confused about are going to start falling into place.
Okay.
So that's something that I've heard.
It's just a matter of just doing it at the end of the day, which I still
Yes.
haven't done. I just gotta just do it, and then you're right. It probably would occur to me, like, as I'm writing, like, this is how I end the story or something, or this is how I progress it. Meantime, this guy just draws maps.
Yeah, that's pretty much my writing process. I draw them up and then like, all right, I'm done.
That's really cool.
I wish there was a bigger market of like fantastical worlds or something. Like you could just draw out maps and worlds and like have a general history of a world or a country, and like that would be your story. Like you just write out the history, because you love history. You and I have talked about this before.
I genuinely thought about that, of just like...
Just write out the history of a fictional country. Like just make a new America or something. I don't know.
No, this is
an untapped market.
Really good idea, because writers want ideas to write about, right? So there's so many websites out there that will randomly select a scenario for you to write about. But I think if you, we already know that writers struggle with world building. Yeah. That's a really big problem. And so if you're creating, random maps and here's a list of facts and just plant your characters here and write about it, I think that you'd have a huge market, and I think it's absolutely something you should explore.
I would genuinely like doing that because I love world building, but once it gets to actual character stories, I'm like, yeah.
There's a really good manga and anime that I really enjoyed watching was Full Metal Alchemist, and it takes place within its own continent. Like, you don't really know where it is because all the countries are fictional, but it takes place within its own continent, and all of the countries are utilized very specifically throughout the story. Like, at one point, the Prince of the East has to come down to the southern country where the protagonists are because he wants to find how they became immortal. And they're like, you really don't want to know because it's bad. Suffice it to say, it's really bad, but he wants it so bad that he gets possessed by the sin of greed. And they have to travel to the northern country to, like, amass, like, resources or something. And so, like, it's all built out, and the country makes sense, and like the traveling makes sense, and it helps because the characters have somewhere to go to, and you can move the story along as they travel, like they encounter obstacles. But the country is there and it's set out, and like they show the maps in the manga issues and in the show too. But it's always interested me like to see the map of the country because there is. Like, when I first started watching it, I was like, oh, it's just another world. But no, it's its own continent. It's got its own countries and kingdoms, and it's all right here.
Yeah.
And, like, seeing it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really
And there was just
does.
something about it that stuck with me. Like, maybe it's probably happened with other things that I've read and watched before, but it's something about that in FMA just stuck with me.
No, that's actually something that for world building suffers a lot. Going back to Harry Potter, it doesn't actually suffer for this, but sometimes it teeters onto a bit weird. Is that the real goal of world building is you need to make it feel like a world. It always has to be bigger than what you're writing about. And a lot of the time, fiction isn't usually good about that. Like, it feels very much like, alright, that's one place, but it doesn't feel like there's anything else. It's like beyond this village wall. It's just like void.
And then to make up for that, they try to just make stories about other places.
Yeah.
When I mean, that can work. Like, Star Wars, like, it didn't seem like a very big world when it started, but now look where we are with, like, the Clone Wars and stuff, right? Like, it's a huge world, and now we know it, but they also had to write about those worlds, which is fine, because the stories were fine, and the world is fine. It's massive. It just took a while to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, because that's something that Full Metal Alchemist does really well, is that it always makes its world feel bigger than what you're seeing. And that's the other thing about world building that I think writers also suffer with, is that you have to write so much out, and as I said, none of it's going to go anywhere. You just need this stuff, because if it's not there, you don't really have anywhere to fall back on, so it just feels completely emptiness.
Yeah.
You can't make the audience feel like beyond the story, it's just a void. Right. And that's hard to do. And somewhere in Star Wars, I'd say even the original trilogy is actually pretty good about that. Yeah. Because there's a thing, once you get to, like, the vastness of space, the very fact of just not mentioning other places makes it feel more realistic, because it's like, why... There's no need to
well, yeah, because everybody knows it. Like, it actually, like, adds a natural aspect to their world, because, like, of course there's other places, and they don't actually need to talk about it, because they're just other places. It's not like we talk about every state, like, in every conversation that we have. It's not like we ever talk about, like, all the other continents of the world.
Yeah, it's like, Nebraska exists, guys. Trust us. We swear.
But Wyoming doesn't.
Wyoming does not. Trust us on that one.
Our Wyoming friend isn't listening, is she?
It doesn't really matter, because she doesn't exist.
That's true. Yes, we have a friend from Wyoming here, but she doesn't exist.
And neither does Wyoming. So it's a bit weird, but...
It's just a giant hole in the middle of the United States.
Yeah.
Giant.
Giant, it doesn't exist.
Oddly rectangular shaped, too, but we don't worry about it.
It's a non-existent rectangle.
Alright. So, for a bit change of pace from, demons and chickens...
That'll be the title of this episode, Demons and Chickens.
You have a blog.
Yes.
I think. Alright, good.
Yeah, it's kind of non-existent at the moment, but it's there. It's out there.
Would you like to share anything about that blog? What made you think about it?
Yeah.
Can you explain what it even is about first?
That would probably be good.
Sure. Yeah, so last year, I decided to create a blog about things that I've noticed as a teenager about my friends as teens, and issues that they have, and specifically how they interact with their parents. And there's so many miscommunications between teens and parents, as I'm sure both of you know. And I think that from a teen's perspective, everything makes sense, and like, you know, whatever you're arguing about, or the opinion that you have that you're having trouble with your parents, like, it makes sense to you. And then to your parents, they have their own world.
Yeah.
But there is no bridge between those two worlds. And it's always been easier for me to understand where my parents are coming from. And I don't know if that's just because they explain it to me. And I also see where my teenage friends are coming from, and peers and so forth. So I've been trying to bridge that gap between teens and parents, specifically for parents. Because I think that even if teens could bridge that gap, they may not necessarily want to. In some cases, everyone's different. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I've been writing over the past year, and I've just been writing about different aspects of being a teenager that I feel like parents have forgotten. There's like a weird transition, I think, as you get older. You either choose to forget about things that you did as a teen, or you genuinely do forget. And I think that that's a big problem for parents, because it's like, sure, your teen's gonna goof off and make silly jokes and run out to Safeway at 10:30 at night and get a giant cake.
Yeah.
Very specific scenario, no context.
No context. You're welcome.
We do not know from personal experience.
Yeah,
we
no,
do such
we would never do such a thing
never.
like try to steal the Safeway clock.
Oh.
We don't talk about that.
Never happened.
No.
You can't.
No, definitely
not. Yep.
So part of my mission has been to give parents, help parents remember what it was like to be a teen, and also tell them about these different aspects of being a teenager that get overlooked, or that are really important that I feel like parents miss. So I'm trying to bring awareness back into the parent world, because teens are really complex, and we're dealing with all these emotions, and like, it's just a transition point in our lives, between childhood and adulthood. And, some parents are like, no, you're still a child, and try to stuff you back into the child box. And other parents are like, no, you're an adult now, and stuff you into the adult box. And I think few parents realize that it's a transition time, and you're going to change and grow and evolve. And they need to be there to support and help you, not getting mad at you all the time. Yeah. So that's what I've been writing about. You can find that blog at www.insidetheteenmind.com. And I'm also at Instagram at inside.the.teen. Inside.the.teen.mind. It's Inside the Teen Mind. Every word is separated by a dot. I'm also on Twitter, at inside_teen mind. So you can find all my writing stuff there. I've been focusing mostly on social media this year. But I have more blogs I'm going to start publishing again. And down the road, I'm looking at creating a course. So I already have it in drafts at the moment. And right now, I'm fleshing out where specifically I want to focus, because there's so many aspects of being a teenager that you can focus on. So I think primarily my focus is going to be communication, and listening, because I think few parents actually know how beneficial listening is and practice it in a way that works. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. Stay tuned. I'll hopefully be out there at some point. We'll see.
Please.
I don't know. School's difficult.
One more year. Unless you are going to college.
Well, we'll see. I'm taking a gap year.
Oh.
To find myself. So
that's a good idea.
My mom took 3 gap years.
Shoo!
Yeah. And she went traveling. She went to Madagascar and all over the world, and Sumatra and Europe, and just had the time of her life. Granted, she's an extrovert. I'm a little bit more introverted, so I might suffer a little bit, but she said it was just so beneficial for her instead of rushing into college. And because I'm not exactly sure where I want to go or what I want to do yet. I know I want to major in psychology, and I want to start a clinic at some point. I don't think it's called a clinic, but
well, you would be a.
Okay.
I think that is the term, actually, because you're you would call yourself a clinical psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, that's what everybody else calls it.
Okay.
So I don't think anyone who's watching this is going to care. Unless we have a psychology teacher who's watching us, which if so, I'm sorry.
But also, please, in the comments, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Explain everything to us. We don't
Please.
understand.
Yeah.
Educate us.
So what's one of the topics that we could talk about that you've written on the blog? Because you've talked about a few things.
Yeah.
And, like, you post stuff on the social medias as well. I see them.
Mm-hmm.
Follow this person, right?
Yeah.
Links in the description and the pinned comment.
Follow her on all social media accounts. I don't have any other social media, so I don't do that. But you should.
I have all of them, so you definitely should. That's also a lie. I only have Instagram.
You guys should definitely follow these folks at their YouTube channels and also...
Oh, you're plugging us. This is our channel.
Wait a second.
We're doing that at the end.
Oh,
we
sorry.
plug ourselves at the
Yeah.
end.
Okay,
Don't worry.
alright,
Don't worry.
then just cut
Don't
that out or
insult us,
whatever.
please.
Sorry. Figured share the love.
No.
Okay, no love shared.
No loving sharing.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Love is cringe.
Anyways, I forget where we were now.
No, what's one of the topics that...
Double standards.
Ooh.
I feel like that's something that I've heard a lot about and also experienced. My mom's pretty good about realizing double standards and...
Well, what kind of double standards specifically? Like,
Well, I'd say behavior-wise for me, like if a parent's having a tough day, they expect you to be really nice and helping them out and
just
like,
to behave a certain way, yeah.
can I do anything for you? You know, let me help you. Let me make food for you. Let me take the groceries in. When you're having a bad day, it's you need to lose the attitude. You need to shape up. You need to...
That's a common
being
adult thing in
so
general, but yeah, more so with
annoyed.
parents. Yeah.
So I just feel like there's such a disconnect there because if you as a parent are telling your teen that they need to help you out and be supportive and so forth, but then when they're struggling and they have an issue, you just kind of, you know, say, well,
Whatever,
it sucks
bro.
to be
I
you.
birthed you, so
Exactly.
heck off.
Exactly. So I feel like you're a role model as a parent. You need to model the behavior that you want your child to be exerting. I don't think that's the right word.
No, I get it. It's like, it's just you want to model, you want to
be a model. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
you
all
want to
of
be a
us.
model.
you want to, as a parent, you want to be the person that your child goes up to and says, man, I want to be like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in any aspect of life, in whatever you do, every boy should want to be like his old man, and every daughter should want to be like her mom.
Ideally,
Whatever you do, whether it's like, whether you like came from a large family and you're going into the religious life, there is still a way to do that. If you're doing a completely different occupation from what your dad even taught you to do, like later on, there's still a way to be like your parents, and that is necessary. That desire to be like your dad and your mom is necessary for healthy family life in the family life, but even more so when you go abroad, because the family life is still there, because they're still here, right? So, it's it's necessary.
Yeah, it is. I think it's important to be inspired by your parents and want to become like them, for sure. And if you as a parent aren't being inspiring, then
Be inspiring.
be inspiring.
Better be inspiring, because we children are going to call you out for stuff.
Exactly.
And that's the other thing too, because like people parents, I guess, call kids bratty a lot, I guess, because we like call them out on their garbage. And in my family, it's actually a common thing to do that, because we Naadens are rather I wouldn't say outspoken as much as it is.
I would say outspoken.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I've always heard
wholeheartedly.
outspoken in a negative, and I don't consider it a negative because it's not.
I don't think it's a negative. I mean, it condescends.
Yeah.
It's more so that we're gonna tell you you're doing something wrong, and like if you're gonna get mad, we're like, not my problem, bro. Okay, fine, that is outspoken. Yeah. But at the same time, we don't care, because
it's not a negative thing. Like, I don't think anyone who like fought for civil rights, like, they are described as outspoken. I don't think most people are like, well, they should have just kept their mouths shut. Like, I don't.
Yeah. Well,
That's how people mean when they say they're outspoken.
Yeah. Well, because like parents will do that as like, you know, like they correct the kid when they're like doing something wrong or incorrect, right? They're like supposed to be the guide, right? Like
Exactly.
They're supposed to be catechizing their kid and properly forming conscience and like rationale and stuff, but like they can't take similar treatment a lot of the time. And in our family, it comes down to stuff where it's like, where like something happens and I sit there and I was like, I told you that was going to happen, you fools. No, not with the additional part. Not with the additional part, I swear.
You fools, you absolute idiot.
No, that's not what I say. But it comes down into turning into that, and it's always... You don't... And as a child, though, you have to remind yourself not to take that, like, humbling... That adult humbling themselves to say that to you with pride, because then you just look like an absolute jerk, and that's like that's not how to approach it. You take it as humbly as they humbled themselves, right? Yeah, but it's the problem is actually not getting them to humble themselves, but getting them to realize that they needed to humble themselves. It's always something my dad told me. You always got to make the other person think that it was their idea, and then you know you're doing it right. You always have to give other people credit, like overt credit. You have to make people think that it was their idea, because that's what makes them happy, right? And that's not in a cheesy way, like help me out here. It's not like the whole point of life is just to be like feel like you're like just feel like being happy all the time. No, it's just that's how you make and keep friends.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that, and it's harder to do that as a teenager, I think, because adults are adults, and from my point of view, they have a lot of pride issues because they're, you know, adults. There's authority. I get that there's authority. I'm not denying the authority. That's the hard part to communicate a lot of times. Yeah, also, probably out of a fear in a lot of kids' experiences, because who knows, like maybe
fearing their parents.
Yeah, which is the absolute worst thing.
I agree. I think you need to respect your parents and understand that there's consequences to your actions and boundaries, but you shouldn't fear them.
Yeah. Respect the authority, of course, but also convey that out of respect for the authority. Tell them that there's something that needs to be, like, changed or tweaked or fixed. Yeah. Whatever the situation may be.
I also think that teens aren't exactly the best at pointing out parents' flaws, because in some cases it's like, well, you do that too, or parents will I was going somewhere with this. Teens just don't like bring it up the best. Right. So I think that's a problem.
That's why I'm so grateful for the 6 hours a day I spend on YouTube, half of which is watching Jordan Peterson.
Yes, Jordan Peterson is amazing.
It's great to have full access to the internet because it allows you to find things that help you think. And I spend a ton of time just watching videos that help me think. And Dad's like, okay, do your school. And I'm like, no, I'm watching things that help me think.
More beneficial than school.
It is. But that's its own conversation.
Yeah.
I just have an adherence to school. That's my personal problem. But double standards, no bueno.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely difficult.
Any thoughts, broski?
Nah. Oh no, man.
No comments.
Adults are whack, and that's all I know.
Yeah.
I try to interact with them. Actually, I try to interact with most people the least possible.
Hence your shirt?
Yeah.
I used to be a people person, then people ruined it.
It's true. It's very true. I used to make so many friends at the park.
Yes.
And now I've realized, no. Don't want to be doing that anymore.
That's funny because I have the opposite experience where I grew up around adults the most. So it's helped me to really think and communicate with adults better because I have always been around them so much. Like, I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides of the family, so I've always been introduced to all the family members, and I know everybody. I've always been grown to learn to know everybody and make connections and make friends, right? So that I have the connection, and adults are still whack. But we're going to become them one day. as long as just we don't become grown-ups.
It's kind of crazy.
It's scary.
I mean, it's less than a year for all of us.
Yep.
Pain. The day you get to be called a legal adult, it's like you're gonna hear like all the congratulations, you're a legal adult, and I'm like, just take me home.
Yeah. Exactly.
Bring me back to when I was 10.
It's like I'm just gonna be like, all right, I'm 18. All right, can I go back to bed then?
Yes.
Can I make this decision now?
Yeah.
Right.
That's gonna be me too, actually.
I'm gonna turn 18 and I'm gonna break down. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's just a day, but a day changes your whole life, and it's like, why?
No, I agree. Responsibility is real. I think that's something else that teens and parents struggle with. It's like the whole responsibility freedom debate. I don't know where you guys and your
Yes.
your parents fall on that. But it's hard for a lot of teens and parents to get that balance right, because teens always want more freedom and they feel like they have too much responsibility. Personally, I think that teens just overreact about how much responsibility they're given. And I think, that when they look back, they'll be like, oh, that wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard to realize that in the moment, for sure.
Well, it's also difficult because like, we say teens as in teens across the world, but there's so many other cultural upbringings.
So true.
There's families that for like generations and like as part of like their culture or something, or maybe it's just their family thing, that where they must delegate certain roles to be done in the house, and this has to be done, and it's like a tightly run ship, which can be a good thing and a very bad thing. Mm-hmm. And in my family, as long as the thing gets done, we don't care, just get it done so that we don't have to yell at you. That can be a good thing, and that can be a bad thing too. But for the most part, it's been a good thing because it gives us a sense of what freedom really is. There's also, I will agree that teenagers overreact about the amount of responsibilities that need to be done. I will also say that teenagers also have sometimes a wrong idea of what freedom actually means. Mm-hmm. And like, without getting too philosophical on the definitions of freedom and good and bad, and like we're going back to Socrates and all that, it's basically just that freedom isn't just freedom isn't just gaming for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And it's not just being on YouTube for 6 hours. I have problems with both, but at the same time, it helps to be out doing other things. I have a job, so I'd have that. I'm trying to get a composing career started. There's that. There's still things to do around the house, and I still have to be, part of the family. So there's that. So it's not like there's not freedom. There's just also things to do, and like there's misdefinitions on both parts, to be honest, about what freedom is, and then what things must be done. And that the second part really could be just my own upbringing, because there's still things that I do, like I still wash the dishes every night. It's not really a hard and fast rule, because my brothers sometimes do it. Like, they take the role from me and they're like, ha ha ha, we got the dishes, and I'm like, great, I'm going back in the office. And, like, because they, like, enjoy it or something. And it's, like, it's cool. And, like, my parents don't make a fuss over it because the thing just gets done.
Right.
It's not something that I'm going to get in trouble for because I didn't do the thing. The thing needs to get done. Mm-hmm. And that clashes with some people's upbringings and, like, other parents. Like, I've told other parents about it, and they get wildly offended because they're like, how dare they run the ship like that? And I sit there and I'm like, don't talk about them like that, or I will kill you. I don't care how old you are, because it's just a different experience, and that's the hard part about really the communication aspect, is that it has to somehow I think it has to both parties have to figure out how to incorporate that lesson, which is universally true, into their own lives and their own experiences. And that's the hard part, but that's the part you gotta have to figure out on your own because you're a teen.
I
Use
agree.
that growing brain.
I think parents should definitely play a role in it, though.
Oh, always, of course, yes.
I think conversations about freedom and responsibility are really underrated, and I think that...
And underdone.
And underdone, sure. And honestly, like, going out for a walk one-on-one with your teen or, like, with your parent,
Mm-hmm.
and just discussing, you know, like, chores or responsibility,
or the freedom aspect.
Or the freedom.
Like I think you're spending too much time on the computer.
Important.
You should do something else. Or like, I don't know. I've been working more hours, so I haven't had exactly time to even go on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I work like I have a full-time job, and I don't.
You're getting prepared.
I'm getting money. What about you? What's your experience?
I mean, it's slightly different being an only child. I was basically drill sergeant until I was a teen, and then it was like, you good.
Nice.
So basically, I'm in this position where if I want to do something, it's up to me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have responsibilities. I don't have a lot of responsibilities. I am a very free person. I, like, have to do nothing.
A lot of us wish we could be like you, man.
It's not always great for me, but it does mean that's, like, it's... If I want to go do something, I go do it. But
Nice.
that's, like, good or bad. I've wanted to get a job, but it doesn't make sense, which annoys me. I think I'm the only person in the world who doesn't need money, and I'm like, but I want to work a job, and then my parents are like, but that doesn't make sense, and I'm like, but I wanna. So, that's happening. It also doesn't help that we, like, move every 3 years, so I'm like, I'm gonna get a job this summer. Oh, we're moving to another state? Fair enough.
Jeez. And this guy isn't even military.
Yeah.
It's one thing when you're like a military kid and like moving around so much, like you don't get a job because you're just gonna leave it anyway.
Yeah.
But then like I've known a few kids like that.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, I don't know. It's very different. I've been given a lot of freedom, and that's done really well, and it's done bad. But it means I can do stuff that I actually want to do, because the way I operate is that if I don't want to do something, I just won't do it. If I have no external pressure for something I don't want to do, it will never get done. Which means...
And by external pressure, you mean like peer pressure or FOMO or something like that?
Not even peer pressure. It's like, I need some sort of incentive. Like, my parents not yelling at me or money. Like, if those two things, I'll do it. But other than that, if it's not that, I'll just be like...
Yeah.
The most teenager thing ever said right there.
No kidding.
Yeah, which means that it's good for me to have freedom, because it means that I actually do stuff, because I'm free to do stuff.
And you can make your own decisions. The independence.
Yeah.
It's not freedom as much as it is independence.
Yeah.
Because they are two different things, more or less.
Yeah, so it's been good for me, because it means stuff like YouTube and stuff like that is stuff that I actually want to do. So I do it. And if I was forced to do it, I'd probably be like, nah.
Yeah. As soon as it becomes not your idea anymore, it's not fun and you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It always has to be your idea.
True.
Basically, yeah. And it's like, I don't mind helping people, and that sounded weird. Yeah, you know what, I'll do things. Like, if you ask me to do something, I'll do it. But it's just like, if I have no passion for something...
Yeah, it's not gonna go anywhere.
That's why I have, like, wildly different grades sometimes. Because I'm, like, pretty good, but if there's a class I don't care about, my mom will be like, why are you getting such low grades? And I'm like, I don't care. I'm sorry, I cannot bring myself to work hard on this. It's just like...
Meantime, my low grades are considered by many to be high grades because of actually part of how I've been raised.
I mean, it's the same probably.
It's really dumb because like I get like low, like a B- or something, and mom's like, that's a low grade, and I'm like, no, it's not, and I haven't even been putting in any effort, and I can still get a B. I actually am pretty good. I don't know. I've always been raised like naturally, like, well, not naturally, just like I've always been told to like just be good at stuff, and there's never been a reason as to why. There's just been like, just do it. So when I don't put in any effort, I'm still good at it because there's still this part of me that's like, that does things well enough automatically, which can be really annoying because then people are like, wow, you're so good at this thing. And I'm like, no, I actually hate doing this thing. I hate how good I am at it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's weird, right? Because like I love writing music and I love like recording music and stuff, and so I have to be good at mixing because I do it all myself. I hate mixing. It sounds fun. It is fun. I just hate it. Yeah. It's the type of fun I don't like because it's so time consuming to get the mix right. Ugh. It's just
Yeah. I feel that.
But I have to still do it. That's the problem, is that I have to still do it because there's nobody to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the same for editing, like, my videos. It's like, well, I have to do this, but...
The offer's still there to edit your videos. I like editing videos.
I know, but I'm terrible at instructions, and sometimes there's something very specific I want to do.
But you can't convey it, and then I do it, and then I did do it, and then, like, you said, like, I wanted this in there or something.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. That's the only reason I don't do it. It's because I know I'm horrible at putting my ideas on a table. For stuff. And a lot of the times, a lot of stuff I do is like, I also have this problem where I am horrible at recording everything I need. Just awful at it, which means that basically my editing process is about a week long, 3 of which those days is just re-recording half the stuff I've done.
Shoot.
Interesting.
That sucks, but it's kind of funny because, like, if you want to do it right, do it yourself. But at the same time, you have to do it right.
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't want to do that either.
It's that adage too: do it if you want to do it right, do it yourself. That I've seen a lot of teens around my area, at least, like really latch onto, and like they want to. It's that they call for as far as like their desire for independence, and then like it's not given to them, and they get like really frustrated and stuff, and it's like. I don't know. It's weird because then there's other factors too that you've also written about. Something like what else was there? What else have you written about? I'm sorry. Like I said, we didn't prepare much for this at all. We're dumb. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Let's see. Double standards. I
mean, we already talked about like just taking walks and like just the act of talking. Is already a lot.
I think the act of talking and also being willing to just listen. And I think a lot of parents listen and then they jump in with advice when they need to keep listening. So I think that's definitely a pitfall.
It's a difference between hearing and listening.
Exactly. And I think that as parents, sometimes they're like, oh, I can see exactly where you went wrong and I need to tell you right now, or I can see
I'm not done yet. Ah! That's my brain every time.
Yeah. So that's important for parents to know. Like if you're jumping in with advice, that might be what's running through your teen's head.
Yeah. You interrupt more than you tell me I do.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, that can be annoying for sure. So yeah, definitely listening for longer than you think you need to. Yeah, I think that's definitely important to keep in mind. And then your teen will start talking. I think that was something I read about, like the FBI or police, when they're interrogating someone, they just won't say anything, and they'll just listen, and then the person ends up like talking more to fill the silence. Like I'm not
assuming
saying
they can get them to talk in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Right.
That's true, which can be another problem with teens. They're silent all the time.
Yeah. Some don't talk at all, and then the parents are like, "Oh, where did we screw up? We don't know because he don't talk."
Yeah. But usually, like, you can kind of trace it back to, oh, I interrupted too many times. Every interaction with my teen was negative.
Again, assuming that information can even get out.
Certainly, yeah. And that can be why your teen's silent all the time. They don't want to interact with you. But allowing them to be quiet and not, like, constantly interrogating them. Don't be like the FBI or the police with your teen.
Yeah. Please no.
Please
I
no.
don't want this.
Just don't. You're gonna make everything a lot worse. But asking thoughtful questions, like that's probably the best way to go. So, yeah, those are kind of some
random question. But have you ever been called pretentious or like whack for being the one leading this program when you yourself are a teen?
No, people actually think that it's a really interesting idea because where I come from is like, everyone talks about it from the therapist, psychologist, parent, adult perspective, and everyone gets that side of things and that side of the conversation, but no teens are really talking about, hey, this is what it's like for us, this is what we want from you, and like parents and adults can speculate all they want, but why not ask, like the actual teens? And so part of me is trying to give a voice to teens who are.
It's a very noble
struggling.
And very hard mission. So
it
good
is.
Good on you.
Thank you. It's been difficult, but I'm really glad that I started doing it because it's been really enjoyable in a lot of ways. It's been good. So I haven't really had that aspect. I'm sure that if I continue to grow and depending on if I continue to work on it or not, I'm sure that there will be haters out there. So
there always are haters. It's one of the rules of the internet.
Exactly. But I think just based on the advice and reactions that I've gotten from a lot of adults, everyone thinks it's really cool. And I'm really glad about that because I think I was starting off and parents were like, can you not?
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay.
Well, so. It's interesting because, like, have you ever gotten those videos in your recommendations about, like, this is why kids are so sad nowadays, or, like, this, that, and the other thing. And, like, I watch it and it's a bunch of, like, either millennials or Gen X talking about, like, why kids are messed up. And, like, in a very general sense, they can be right. And at the same time, they're so missing the mark.
Exactly.
It's so stupid how close they get and yet how far they are. It's like they almost paint themselves as pretentious and they don't even know it, which is why, like, your idea is so cool because it's from the source, right? More or less. And it's really cool. And it's very, like I said, noble and cool that you're doing it, but it's very hard, isn't it?
It is. It's been very difficult.
As far as, like, getting the word out there or, like, actually constructing how to say what you want to say?
Both. It's been difficult for me to find what I want to talk about. And as I said, like, now I've kind of whittled it down to I want to talk about listening and communication. And there's just so much more out there. But, like, after whittling that down, there's a bunch of different avenues I can take and a bunch of different things I'm going to be writing about. And then getting the word out and actually, like, telling people, hey, guess what? You can get it directly from the source. You don't have to go through other adults and psychologists and so forth. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get advice from psychologists.
Right. Yeah, because they know what they're doing, and in one sense they are right. But there's just another side to the story.
There's another side to the story, exactly. And I think that if more parents knew about it, it would hopefully help. I like to think that what I have to say is beneficial.
I think it is.
I'm glad.
As a teen myself, I think it's quite good.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah. So I think, like, looking forward, I want to do what are they called? Not a study group, but like a focus group.
Focus groups, yes.
With other teens. That way I can really get a general sense of what are the big issues. What do they want to see from their parents? You'll need a
YouTube channel for that to get that out there, and maybe like your own podcast link and stuff too.
I know. I've been thinking about creating a podcast. I think it'd be really
Stay tuned. I'll be hooking her up with the YouTube channel soon for the focus group. It will happen, okay? It will happen because that's a great idea.
Threat or a promise?
Take it as both.
I know, right?
Take it as both.
It will happen.
It's a threatening promise.
It will happen.
Yeah.
It's a threat, I promise.
Well, thank
you. Yeah. Are there any, like, not closing remarks. I don't want to, like, close it like that, but, like, any questions for us or anything you want to talk about that we didn't get around to that you want to still? Because we can still talk.
Yeah.
We have no time limit.
Excellent talkers. This has been
Thank you, I think.
really fun and really easy.
I'm glad. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
I'm glad we're able to do this in person,
I
too.
know.
This is great.
This is great. It really beats Zoom for sure.
Oh, yes.
Oh, the problems we have and the
pain.
glitches I have to edit out on my end are just awful.
Yeah, and by the way, I have a burning passion for Zoom. Like, I hate it.
Okay. I was wondering if that was like, I love it so much.
No, I just hate its guts.
Yeah, same.
So do I.
It's such a
so many bad memories.
WebEx is worse.
True. But...
Electa's even worse.
We don't talk about that.
I mean, it's true. I don't know. Just Zoom rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is.
Any online platform at this point rubs me the wrong way. But yeah, Zoom annoys me. Probably because it's for school classes and I just associate it with school, which is always just something that I need to get done so I can do my other thing as quickly as I can.
Nothing
So this in-person thing is really great. I wish we could do this more, but
I know.
you know, there's only like 1 or 2 weeks out of the whole year.
I know. Yeah. Can't be in person for sure.
Yeah.
Always. It helps because there's no lag.
Yeah. I can finally hear what you're saying without a 90-second delay.
Yeah.
You start talking over me because I can't see.
Because I've got desert satellite Wi-Fi and he's got the good one, so there's issues on our end. I'm sure you can tell. So this is very nice. It is so refreshing.
It is.
It really is. Yeah, this has been really lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
You sure anything at all you want to talk about or want
I think
to say?
that's kind of it. This is, it's just been fun.
Any closing remarks you want to have before we plug ourselves and go to a stereotypical YouTube outro?
I guess for any parents listening, like, make sure to listen to your teen and try to tell them that you love them every day.
And for any writers listening?
And for any writers listening, if you're in the middle of writing or editing, you've got this, and you just need to keep going. And I know that's not what you want to hear.
I know, some cheesy, we believe in you.
You can do it.
Learn from my mistakes and continue working on it. Get other people's advice. Read it aloud. If you're struggling with character development or world building, I mean, clearly we've got an expert here. Reach out to him. If you're struggling with characters, there's all kinds of templates online. I feel like the internet is a really underused tool when it comes to writing. People have great ideas. Definitely check it out. Pinterest is surprisingly good. So
all right.
keep it in mind.
You find weird things everywhere. Like, I believe it. Pinterest is wild, bro.
Pinterest
It is, though.
Yeah, it's cool though. I mean,
Yes, but
I get
it's
very
also
inspired.
wild.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So thank you so much for having. Oh, sorry.
There's still lag even in my voice in real life.
No, I'm just stupid.
Well, we hope that you found the information conveyed useful and like all of the stuff that was talked about beneficial. If you are a writer, like, we hope that this conversation has filled you in on like that you are truly not alone in the respects that we get the writer's block, okay?
Yes.
We get it. We all go through it. I'm still in it because I still can't even write down a whole chapter. and this guy just draws maps. Great maps, but
maps nonetheless.
yes.
nonetheless.
Not to negate your maps, but they're just maps.
Yeah, they are just maps. No.
So yeah, we hope you like it. For any parents watching, you know what she said. So I'm so good at this. This is why I leave the intro and outro stuff to him.
Yeah, and please subscribe to both of us, especially me. My outro music just got copyright striked.
You want me to write another song?
Striked. No, I have plenty of other free music to do, and it doesn't affect my channel at all, but it is very sad that I can't use it anymore, so please.
It was a great outro song.
It was, and it's on a free library of my editing software, and they just randomly decided, you know, that's copyrighted now.
Wow.
So thanks, Filmora.
We're still using you for recording the audio, but that's all.
Yeah. Nah, I'm gonna keep using you. I already paid for you. It's gone.
Yeah. Sub to him. He's almost at 200. Sub to me.
Nice.
Because I'm on the goal to 1,000.
Woo!
Sub to her, even though she has no YouTube channel. Just follow her socials on, what was it, Instagram and Twitter and
Instagram and Twitter.
The links will be in the doobly-doo.
Mm-hmm. And the other one.
And the other one, yeah.
The pinned comment.
Mm-hmm. I don't use pinned comments.
I do, so that's why I'm the manager of the channel remotely.
My description is just like an emoji of a turtle, and then I'm like, yeah, that's good enough.
That's for your video. Subscribe to him. Please sub to me if you want, but please subscribe to this channel in particular so that we can get this thing off the ground. This is episode, what, 7, 8?
It's definitely an episode.
It's an episode, so please sub and share it with everybody. Share her stuff with everybody. She's great. We're going to get her YouTube channel eventually so she can start that focus group because that would help the teen program a lot. So be on the lookout for that. I'll probably make a community post about that on my channel because we're linked as host 1 and host 2. So we'll have stuff. Please sub to him. Maybe he actually uploads something that gets an algorithm hit. Who knows? Maybe he'll actually
Yay.
upload something good
Maybe.
for once.
And happy 4th of July. This
Yes,
isn't
happy
filmed on
4th
4th of July, nor will it come out anywhere near 4th of July.
But happy 4th
But
of July
happy
flag.
4th of
Yes.
July. Yeah, we got a flag.
We got a flag.
We got flag. Happy 4th of
Yay.
July.
Ah!
Shoot, she took over.
Happy
Alright.
Independence Day.
Yay!
Yeah. Yay, America.
Woo. All right.
See you guys later.
Peace.